Hey everybody, it is Eric and it is Sajeev, Judge Sajeev joining us. You guys may remember Judge Sajeev is a big Ford fan. We are back from MSR Houston and the Yokohama Stuntin' and Splodin' Soiree in Houston, Texas, which is very Texan. Everything's bigger in Texas, the cars, the SUVs, the failures, it's all bigger in Texas.
Yes, and here in the Houston area, we invented a special car called the Slab, so we decided to actually make a Lemons Slab penalty to go with it down here in Houston.
Hella sweet was Jason Siebert, who brought his Saab Sonnet 3, which was a highly tuned race version of it. I didn't know that was a thing. His Ford Taunus V4, yes, that's a real thing, allegedly made like 170 horsepower, and he was just going to lend it to us as a Judge-mobile to drive around the paddock. Unfortunately, Jason pretty much ended up working on it all weekend, so I didn't get to drive it. But Sajeev, you did. What was it like?
It was a perfect Lemons Judge-mobile for many reasons. It was unreliable, it was elegant looking, and it got a lot of people's attention. So hella sweet was number 301, the Pickle Nissan. So they actually dressed up in a pickle suit, which was the thing that John Oliver on his TV show on HBO made a big deal about.
We did a story about local car commercials. Some of them looked suspiciously similar.
Hey, you know me, Scott Elder here from Elder Mitsubishi. I'm in a pickle. My doctor told me to turn it down a notch before my heart explodes.
Scott Lehman here from Premier Auto Center, and I'm in a pickle. My doctor told me to calm down before my heart explodes.
Hey, Fred Grody here from Grody Automotive. Doctor told me I need to turn it down a notch so my heart doesn't explode.
We're in a pickle! If we don't get this car in Class B, my heart's gonna explode!
Speaking of great bribes, car number 266, Party Girl, brought us this painting, this piece of fine art made, I guess, loosely based on Rick and Morty, Pickle Rick, Lemons Rick. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you're as puzzled as I am. All we know is that when people bring us incredible art like this, that's a fantastic bribe. And don't you have something like this from the same team, Sajeev?
Why, yes.
And we got yet another great bribe from the low speed, high drag team who had two cars there. They are great guys. The two main guys are actually cancer survivors and they're raising funds while they're out here racing. They figured life's too short, let's go do stuff we want. We think that's super awesome. They're still working on the driving part. But they're getting better, and more importantly, they brought us a bribe based on the Rod Blagojevich cameo that I received as a bribe at a previous race.
If you can't trust the process, it's not a competition, and therefore it's not fun watching.
They were bumper stickers we could pass out or slap on penalized cars saying, trust the process. If there's anything better than that, I'm not sure what it is. Hella sweet. One more hella sweet thing was this Sharknado Toyota Supra. I mean, what else do we need to say about it? They made a Sharknado on the roof of a Toyota Celica. That's hella sweet. And also should mention the star of Sharknado, Ian Ziering. He's a Lemons racer.
So, as a veteran of every Lemons race here in Houston since 2008, I was very excited and surprised to see so many cars from the area that I thought had disappeared show up for the 2021 race.
One of those was the Pulp Friction BMW E30, now normally E30, who cares? These guys last raced in 2018, they came back, just kind of dusted it off, finished third place. That was kind of hella sweet. Also, a BMW was the Rusty Rose of Texas BMW 1602. Now, I'm pretty sure this car won the very first Index of Affluency in 2008 at Houston. They kind of dusted it off. It still had turnbuckle engine mounts and plumbing for the radiator. It was super bizarre. They were back. It was hella sweet. Always good to see this old thing.
Another returning veteran was number 131, Sheila and the Sheik's Mustang. Now, it was last raced in 2019, and I thought that might have been the last of it, but a new team bought it and gave it a new theme of the Tuskegee P-51 plane. It's a good look. I liked it a lot. It was great to see it on the track again.
Also back was Speedy Monzales, which is a Pontiac Sunbird Chevy Monza, who really knows. They haven't raced since 2018. It was hella sweet to see them back. Believe it or not, this car has won both Class C and Class B in the past. A Monza has won Class B. This weekend, not so much. A little but terrible, but still great to see them as well.
Another great one was the number 0 GMC Caballero. No, it was not a Chevy El Camino, it was the GMC Caballero, and it last raced here in 2013. It still looked terrible, it didn't run that great, but it was hella sweet to see it on track.
One last returning car was Anton Lovett's famous on-set racing Chevy Cavalier. Now, Anton Lovett is the only Lemons person so far to follow through on our buy 99 get one free race deal, and most of those have been with a Chevy Cavalier. Going all the way back to 2007, I think he's had 4 or 5 of these terrible things. He is the only person I know who's ever developed one of these beyond just a piece of crap. It was kind of quick. It was a top 5 car. He let it sit for the last couple years, dusted it off for one final go before he donated it to Ranger Road, and in a fitting end, the wheel fell off the car. It was kind of great. Anton was very done with it at that point. I think he might be done with his Cavaliers. It is moving on to somebody else, and he will continue to race his Volvo. That was all hella sweet, and a little bittersweet, perhaps. Now, in addition to many of the resuscitated old crap cans, we also had a bunch of kind of accidental, tailor-made, perfect for what we do head-to-head battles at this race, and they were all kind of hella sweet too.
And so one of my favorite ones was the 2 competing dad bod teams. And what vehicle is one of the best ways to personify a dad bod? It would be sport compact hatchbacks from the 1990s. So we had number 88 Team Dad Bod Ford Probe and number 102 Dad Bods Racing Mitsubishi Eclipse. And we had a clear winner in this particular head-to-head battle. It was the Mitsubishi Eclipse, which turned 233 laps and wound up in 56th place.
Now, the second one of these was a Pontiac front-wheel drive duo from the 2000s, which was the Flaccid Chassis Pontiac G6 and the Barachos Racing Team Pontiac Grand Prix GT. Don't forget the GT. Now, unfortunately, the Flaccid Chassis G6 checked out early in the race with a transmission that had started to blow up at the last race and then cleaned itself out at the second race. However, the team captain's wife works for Total Insurance, who insures all kinds of big racing stuff, and he asked them for a sponsorship, and they sent him a curt reply. And they also came with some celebration of the car that we'd done in a previous recap. Is it that simple? Can I just ditch my boring-ass BMW and have more fun with a Pontiac? And the answer is, well, yes. The GM sound. Unfortunately, they lost to the Barachos Racing Team, who had purchased their Grand Prix from a team in California who had raced it previously with their supercharger. They were leaning on this thing hard, and it, didn't run great, but it ran, and they finished about 40th overall. So, chalk one up for the Barachos Racing Team in the Grand Prix in this one. Hey, Sajeev, what's better than one AMC?
I'm glad you asked, Eric, because it's 2 AMCs going head-to-head. My favorite head-to-head battle was the AMC versus AMC action we had provided by Team Lowball. Their number 402 AMC Spirit versus their AMC Gremlin. And yes, this Gremlin was a Levi's edition Why You Ruin Classic. The Spirit won, it got 43rd place, and it made all of us very happy at Lemons HQ.
Now, one last head-to-head battle was a pair of Infinity G35s. Now, of course, $500 my ass, but here's the thing about the G35. The 9-owner, driven at 12 tenths through the neighborhood at all times, been hit On every single corner, Infinity G35 is a thing, and they're about to start showing up kind of in Lemons and in junkyards and everywhere. You can get them for cheap, and Winfinity Racing torched the heads on theirs. But the other team was To Infinity and Beyond, which is an Infinity dealership. Now, the dealership guys, they ended up logging more laps and therefore winning this head-to-head battle, but really it's worth pointing out that they both got beat by an AMC Spirit. Lemons racers all kind of need driver school, and 24 Hours of Lemons is kind of a driver school in and of itself, but we also had a couple of actual driving school cars and instructors at this race, and that was kind of neat. First among these was Ginger Racing and their Bonder Knot Ford Mustang. They painted this V6 Mustang to look exactly like a Bondurant Racing School Mustang. Of course, it was the V6 version, and it was the Bonder Knot, which, when they went to go put it on the track, they discovered that it was leaking fuel profusely. Turns out that they had their own actual Bondurant Racing School V8 Mustang from 1995 that they paid $1,500 for. They went and fetched that. It passed tech. Now, the real Bob Bondurant car didn't have a fuel leak, and it ran all weekend. And in an unrelated set of events, Bob Bondurant died that very same day.
I'm sorry, Bob.
And another fine example of a driving school vehicle we had was number 993 Chevy Sonic, which was probably a B-spec car at some point in its life, with the cage, the suspension, all the cheaty stuff you expect from a real race car. And it also had some hand controls, which I don't think were used at this time, but one of the best parts for us about it was that it was the same car, roughly, as Eric's rental Chevy Trax from the airport.
Speaking of cars with hand controls, Battle Scarred Motorsports brought another Crown Vic. This is the third one that they've had. This one had hand controls, was being raced by people in wheelchairs who needed the hand controls. That was hella sweet. They drove the car pretty well, kept it clean, really great to see, and one of the drivers is an instructor at MSR Houston. The usual suspects from Battle Scarred were there as well. That is their two other Crown Vics and their Miata. They did a great Lemons Judges, Lemons staff theme at BS Inspection. We really enjoyed that. They had the matching shirts that they made themselves. That was great. And on the weekend, they had a pretty typical weekend, which is to say they crashed two cars and finished 7th with the other one. So, pretty typical.
So in Lemons, we always like to celebrate and appreciate those great rookie teams that show up to one of our races. And here in Houston, we had number 101 TPS Report Racing and their Acura RSX. $500 my ass. Except not, because this one was in a crash, it was put in someone's backyard, and then a tree fell on it. When they pulled it out, there was a frog living in there, there was water, there was mold, there was an ecosystem. They only paid $300 for it, and oh, by the way, it had an automatic.
Perhaps you have watched other recaps that we've done, and maybe you've watched the High Plains one where we talked about BMW owners who show up expecting to dominate.
Watch this, losers!
The Breaking Bad Racing Group was back for this race, and they were embracing their "watch this, losers" attitude. They painted it on the back of their Toyota Tercel, which they have swapped with a Pontiac Vibe GT engine, as you do. They racked up a few black flags doing their usual "watch this, losers" act, but their Ford Festiva won Class C, which was pretty hella sweet. And when we say Festiva, we mean Turbo Festiva. Let's play a new segment on the 24 Hours of Lemons wrap-ups called Did It Catch Fire?
Talking about the 53 Glue Sticks Toyota Supra. Caught on fire last year and set the grass on fire as well. Had a tough time this year, but did it catch fire?
No, it did not!
That brings us to the Dipsticks Volkswagen Beetle, not to be confused with Glue Sticks. Their Jetta caught on fire at Autobahn beyond repair despite their best efforts. This time around, their Beetle didn't quite torch itself, it only smoked and left oil everywhere. Did it catch on fire?
No, it did not!
And then we had number 94, Gang Green, in their LT1-powered Chevrolet Corvette C4. This is the second year with that car, and while it was an automatic, it was actually pretty fast. Did it catch on fire?
Hell yes, it did! Now, on the plus side, he pulled that fire suppression system and he got out safe. Let's remember, this is what fire systems are here for, and this is why we love them so much.
All right, that brings us to the winners for this race, and we'll start with the Yokohama Road Mangler Cup. Again, this is pretty simple. Bring a car on Yokohama tires, you get the chance to win a set of Yokohama tires. The Resistance's Dodge Dart won the free set of tires on the drawing at the end of the weekend, but Spin It to win it with their MR2, they might have won at sticker application.
And our heroic fix was number 56, Uh-Oh Motorsports with their Mitsubishi Mirage. We have seen these guys fight this car non-stop year after year. Their first time around, they actually decided that to fix the fuel injection system, they would put a carburetor on it and use an adapter plate made out of wood. So this is just pretty much shows what these guys do. And so they went from the base model 4G15 engine to the more modern 2.4 liter 4G64 engine. And as you know, 64 is more than 15, so it must be better. Except they torched it, and they spent all day swiping the engine, moving parts between the two motors. So we will see them back with something more reliable at the next race.
The flip side of the heroic fix, of course, is the I Got Screwed, and that went to Onset Tetanus Racing and their Nissan Xterra. When you think Nissan Xterra, you probably don't really think race car, and neither do we, but this one ended up in racer Wendy Epstein's hands for free. And what better price is there for a Lemons car than free? All she had to do was drive from Montana to California and drive it back, and it only took about 20 quarts of oil. Wendy did the responsible thing. She contacted us and said, well, how can I make this past tech? And one of the things we requested was that you actually lower this thing so it doesn't roll over. So it had like 9-inch lowering blocks on it. That was pretty crazy, but that was not really where the crazy part began. The car wasn't quite running right, as you might expect from a car that consumes oil at the rate of about a gallon every 100 miles, and they needed a crank from the distributor to the oil pump, which they found in stock at a dealership on Saturday. Unfortunately, the dealership's parts person had gone home, the service department wouldn't sell them the part without installing it, and they wouldn't install it on a race car, so they were kind of SOL with this part that was 20 miles away, but they couldn't actually put in the car. As a result, the Xterra turned 0 race laps. Pretty easy I Got Screwed, unfortunately.
We had the Condition Yellow limited menu only for number 251 Mr. Jack Wrench Racing and their Honda Accord. Now, those of us who live in the Gulf Coast, we know how bad the hurricanes are, and maybe you do or maybe you don't know that Homeland Security and FEMA actually use a Waffle House disaster scale for local conditions, because if a Waffle House isn't open, you know you're totally screwed. That said, Jack Wrench Racing, they made waffles for everyone, they had fresh coffee. It wasn't the worst, it wasn't the best, but we all had waffles.
Judge's choice went to Hi Hungry I'm Dad Racing and their Mazda 929. Now, big forgettable Japanese luxury cars probably don't need a theme, especially the 929, because when was the last time you remember even seeing one of these? But damn, these guys went all out on the internet meme theme of AutoZone, throw your used car batteries into the ocean, it's a safe and legal thrill. Now, first of all, please don't do this. It's a weird internet thing that kind of took off. I don't know how these things start. Nobody knows how they start except for like an person. And you know, they kind of take on a life of their own. Now these guys embraced this, and part of the whole lore of whatever this meme is that when you throw your batteries in the ocean, it recharges the electric eels. So they fittingly put an electric eel on the roof of the car. They had all the graphics on the side. They 3D printed mini batteries, which they threw into the car during BS inspection at their diver, and then they were throwing them out of the car at people in the paddock the whole weekend. It was totally mystifying to most people, including us, but also hilarious. If you really need a theme, the internet is ripe with them. You can find stuff like this, and we will give you trophies. Very well done, Hi Hungry I'm Dad. Organizer's choice went to Event Horizon and their Plymouth Horizon. Like many organizers' choices, we gave this one to the car that we really think makes the most lemony lemon of all the lemons, and a Plymouth Horizon is exactly that. Now, this is two college friends. One of them has raced lemons, one of them never has. They're Mopar guys. They thought, what is the weirdest Mopar we can find? Because it's not enough to build a weird Mopar, one of the team members drove from Atlanta to Houston in his other lemons car, which is a Dodge Neon. There's plenty of weird Mopar happening, but the Omni and the Horizon were based on the French Simca, and because they didn't have a good engine to put in it, they bought a whole bunch of Volkswagen engines to put in them. This car had that Volkswagen engine. As they found out, and as tens of people in the entire world knows, there is all kinds of weird parts interchange in these kinds of, parts bin rating things. So, was the clutch a Volkswagen clutch? Who knows? Was the half shaft a Volkswagen half shaft? Who can say? The only people who might actually know are Chrysler techs from 1980, most of whom probably rage quit the business within 3 or 4 years of that. So, these guys were on an island trying to make this thing work. They put some Chinese knockoff ignition system in it, which meant that they had a French-designed car with a German engine being sold as an American car with a Chinese intake, and for good measure they had Honda wheels on it. As you might imagine, it didn't work all that great, but man is it super cool to see one of these at a Lemons race. Couldn't be more lemony than this.
And then the top prize of the Lemons race is the Index of Effluency. It went to number 12 and number 900, two cars of the Resistance, a 60s slant 6-power Dodge Dart and a 70s Honda Civic wagon. They run the race, they have a good time in the paddock, they take care of people, and they have some pretty amazing skills to keep an old Dodge and an old Honda on the track. And with that, let's do Lemons in a nutshell.
I've got a bunch of geriatric old men on my team.
We said we weren't going to spin it this year. I didn't come see the judges. Terms and conditions apply.
I went out at 11:21. They tell me I get flagged at 11:15. I get 2 hours in the car today, you jerk off, and you leave me with a black flag, you mother.
Where the hell are my tires? What?
Oh, dude, bummer.